it's not even it's not even a villainous or despicable act by the Pac-12. Like, okay, like it's good politics to cater to Oregon, make sure that Phil Knight's happy because he is a very important constituent now with USC and UCLA headed out. Like, I get it. It's smart. All right. It's smart to cater to Oregon and not to USC because USC is not going to be your concern. What's USC going to do? Call the police? Like, USC just has to sit here and take it in 2023. So, like, politically, it's actually astute on the part of the Pac-12. But my thing is, people are saying, oh, anti-USC animus didn't have anything to do with this. USC departing for the Big Ten didn't have anything to do with this. Come on. Let's be adults. Let's be grown-ups. We live in the real world. Like, human beings are motivated by incentives. Let us not pretend that the politics and the economics didn't have something to do with all this. That's the thing. Like, you can say that, USC maybe, USC fans shouldn't be whining about this because, you left for the Big Ten, so you brought this on yourselves. I'm fine with that. Like, I would agree. Okay. But I really do get angry with people who say that politics and economics, didn't really motivate or guide these kinds of decisions. Now that is just unserious. That is just unrealistic. So when we look at all this, let's point out at the schedule as you have it on the screen. So Utah and USC on the 21st, and then Utah and Oregon play the next week, the 28th. And Oregon has a pretty soft game. I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's either Washington State or Cal on the 21st, and then Oregon gets the Utah game. So, like, you will notice with Oregon's schedule, when you compare it to what you see on the screen with USC's schedule, Oregon has soft game, tough game, soft game, tough game. There are buffers before each of the big games on Oregon's schedule. Oregon has an off week on October 7 before playing Washington in Seattle on October 14th. There's always a buffer for each of Oregon's games. So this schedule is tailored to help Oregon succeed. It's scheduled to give Oregon the best possible chance. And again, for people who think that this is just knee-jerk pro-USC fanboy whining, let me say, last year, George Kliavkoff catered to USC. Like, last year's schedule was pretty much laid out like a red carpet meant to help USC succeed because USC hadn't bolted for the Big Ten yet, and USC football was the most important brand that the Pac-12 had to take care of. All right? So, like, I'm not going to sit here and ignore or pretend that USC wasn't given this same red carpet treatment last year that Oregon's getting this year. I'm not pretending to ignore that, okay? I'm not pretending it doesn't exist. So USC was given the royal treatment last year, Oregon this year. And what changed? USC left for the Big Ten. Like, this is not that complicated. And we shouldn't have to sit here and pretend that the politics and the economics didn't motivate these decisions. So with USC, you have Notre Dame, Utah, the one buffer, Cal, and then Washington, Oregon, UCLA. So, like, you're playing 5 high-end games, at least 4. You're playing Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon in a 5-week stretch without any rest. That is a unique gauntlet that no other team in the Pac-12 is facing. And this leads me to the other really, really big talking point, especially from Utah fans. Utah fans have gotten really salty, really spicy in my mentions at Trojan's Wire when I berated the schedule release and how ridiculous it was for USC. Utah fans have been particularly vocal, even more than Oregon. It's kind of interesting how it works that way. Utah fans were particularly vocal in saying, oh, but you get that off week in late November before the Pac-12 championship game. That's a unique advantage for USC. Hold up. USC plays its full 12-game regular season schedule before that off week. So it's only an off week if USC gets to the Pac-12 championship game. If USC doesn't get to the Pac-12 championship game, that's not an off week. That's just the end of the season, all right? So this is an unrealized benefit. One Utah fan in my mentions was mature enough and honest enough to say that. It's a currently unrealized benefit. USC will derive benefit from that off week. late in November if it makes the Pac-12 championship game. And I know the roots of this off week in late November too. It was BYU backing out of a game, because of the move to the Big 12. Look, I get it. So I'm not criticizing the Pac-12 for having that off week in late November. That was unavoidable. The avoidable error was you could have had USC and Utah playing in September. But in terms of that late November off week, it's going to be really hard for USC to get to the Pac-12 championship game. Now, of course, this is a big boy league and it's a big boy circumstance, and Alex Grinch has to get that defense ready. So, from that standpoint, no excuses. But, just in terms of giving USC more buffers in the middle of the year, that like USC didn't get that. And you add on the fact that from week 4 through week 12, that's 9 straight weeks of football, USC is going to be playing. So like this team, that the depth is going to be tested when we get into early November, and you'll have been playing 6-7 straight weeks. That is a burden that no other Pac-12 team has to carry. UCLA is playing 8 straight weeks at one point in the season. But Oregon and Washington, the 2 most important constituents for George Kliavkoff, now that USC and UCLA are on the door, they get that nice off week in early October, pretty much in the midpoint of the season. That's exactly when any football team wants its off week. You get a nice balance between the first half of the season and the second half of the season. The off week isn't too early that you're then playing a lot of weeks consecutively, which is what USC has. And it's not too late, that you can't really capitalize on an off week because you're having to play so many weeks consecutively before that off week. So the idea that USC has this great advantage by having the off week in late November, it's not true. So USC has to get to the Pac-12 title game to derive benefit from that. And it's going to be really hard for USC to get there just because like the depth of this team. If the injury bug hits early to mid-October, especially when you go through that really physical 2-game double stack against Notre Dame and Utah back-to-back weeks, those 2 teams are going to grind on USC. Even if the Trojans win both games, it's going to take a physical toll. And then you have to go play Washington, Oregon in November. If this team doesn't get to the Pac-12 championship game, all the people who are saying, oh, this is such a great advantage, that's just not going to add up. So it's kind of like saying, hey, we're going to give you a 1-year free membership at a health club. But first, we mandate, before you sign on the dotted line, we mandate that you have to eat 20 cheeseburgers in an hour. That's basically what this amounts to. Like, oh, if you get to the Pac-12 title game, you have it made. But good luck getting to Vegas with this schedule. We're going to make it as hard for you as is humanly possible. So that's a little perspective on the late November off week.